Hello and welcome to the Game Lore Archives. My name's Daniel and today we're discussing Deckard Cain, Leah and Adria the Witch, kinda starting off where Joe left us last episode. In the year 1202, Deckard Cain was born and Adria the Witch was born a little bit after in 1220, so both before the Zakharum Inquisition. Leah herself is obviously way younger and isn't born until 1264. So, as they're all connected and their fates are all tied together, let's start the story in 1202. Deckard's father's name is unknown in the history books. Great start, I know, but all anyone knows about him is he was a tanner by trade, and his mother was called Adria Cain, who forbade Deckard to take his father's surname. Anyway, Adria's was... well, she appeared to be batshit insane and always told these crazy stories of angels and demons and a secret organisation called the Herodrim. By similar standards, Joe and me are also insane, so maybe I shouldn't judge too harshly, as our last episode was about angels and demons and a secret organisation called the Herodrim. As a kid, Deckard loved these stories, but by the time he hit kind of 11 years old, his mum's fairy tales were getting a little bit embarrassing. I mean, can you imagine rocking up to school and your mum just starts spouting out about angels and demons? Well, that was Deckard's childhood. Deckard was a nerd and loved studying and reading, and he stayed in Tristram, the town where he was born, to become the town's schoolteacher, and he married a woman called Amelia, who gave birth to his son Jared. As Deckard grew older, his research became more of an obsession and he started ignoring his family. And as stories of neglect often go, he got his ass dumped in 1237 when he was 35, and Amelia took Jared and left Tristram. Unfortunately, they were killed by bandits before they reached any kind of destination, which caused Deckard to become even more reclusive, rarely leaving his library. Next episode, I'm going to go into the story of the Mad King, but all you need to know for now is Tristram had a king, and he went mad, hence the name. While his insanity grew, Deckard tried to research what could be causing this rash change of character, and started looking into old Herodric books. And he noticed the pages of these texts contained the stories his mum used to tell him as a child. However, they weren't written as fairy tales, but as solid facts. And the more he read the text, the more he wondered if his mother's stories of angels and demons were in fact true. Using the books, he guessed that the king was under the influence of the primeval Diablo. He sat on the information for quite a bit as he knew it sounded crazy, but all of the facts lined up. But even he wasn't convinced himself that the burning hells even existed, so he never really tried to convince anyone else. Obviously it was Diablo, which caused Deckard to regret keeping this information to himself, as many of Tristram's villagers were killed. Most of the remaining villagers fled, however he resolved to stay and read the remains of the text to try and find a way to stop the primeval. Eventually, news of the curse that has befallen the king spread, and adventurers started coming into the town to try and help. And when they did, Cain was there to share his newfound Herodric knowledge with them. A witch named Adria also set up a hut on the outskirts of town around this time, so she could sell her wares to anyone who tried to stop the Mad King. And here I'm just going to put a pin in Deckard's story and focus on Adria for a little bit. Adria was born in a town called Kingsport in the year 1220. Her father, Severin, was a greedy man who loved wealth more than his family. He killed Adria's mother when Adria was 10, and he was arrested by the city guard, but managed to bribe the right people to be excused and pardoned. It didn't make much difference when he returned home, however, as he was killed in a huge fire that set his house ablaze, as Adria stood outside. After this, Adria moved north, into the wilderness somewhere between Kingsport and the city of Westmarch. As she grew, she was soon easily recognised as a witch, which was a blessing and a curse. If someone needed a help, they would shower her with affection. However, on the flip side, if someone vanished, she'd be the first person to get the blame. And this was her life, until she stumbled on a small secretive group of witches who lived in the wilds, and due to her talent, she swiftly climbed through their ranks. While in the group, she met a like-minded witch called Magda, and the two became best friends. However, they both craved more power. Eventually, Magda convinced Adria to poison the leaders of the group, and the two friends took control. The plan worked, and when they took over, they reforged the group into a dangerous cult who practiced demonic summoning and torturing. The pair led this group for some years. However, eventually they fell out. Nobody but Magda and Adria knew what this fight is about. However, it ended with Adria leaving the group and travelling to Tristram, which brings us back to where we left Deckard Cain's story. So, the few remaining villagers in Tristram didn't trust Adria because she was a witch. However, Deckard befriended her, and the pair spent many nights in the local tavern. She taught Deckard about the magic that she'd learned throughout the years, along with what she knew about demons and the burning hells, while Cain shared the knowledge he had found through his heraldric texts. The only topic she avidly avoided were questions about her past. She also took a large interest in a heraldric artifact Cain had mentioned, called the Black Soul Stone. Eventually, an adventurer known Aiden stopped Diablo's plan, but unbeknownst to him, was possessed by Diablo's essence. He sought solace in Adria, and the pair spent many intimate moments together behind closed doors, until Adria became pregnant with Aiden/Diablo's child. Soon after this happened, Aiden and Adria departed Tristram separately. Adria took Gillian, the barkeeper from Tristram, and they travelled to the city of Chaldean, and there Adria gave birth to her daughter, Leah. Once Adria was fit enough to travel, she placed protective wards around Gillian's new home to hide them from the greater evils, and departed on a mysterious errand. While Adria left Tristram, Deckard stayed in his hometown, but unfortunately the town's ordeals were not over yet, and were besieged by demons for a second time. They killed any remaining villagers, and locked Cain up in a cage in the centre of town, constantly tormenting and starving him, waiting for him to die. Luckily, he was saved by a band of heroes who had heard of Tristram's plight and had come to help. In return, Cain helped these heroes stop the primevals from invading Sanctuary, and so the band of heroes departed, thinking that they had won against the burning hells. However, Cain knew this wasn't the case. He tried to convince them to stay with him, however, none of them listened. They had fought long and hard, and they had been stretched to the limits both physically and mentally. But Deckard, however, focused on the future. The ordeals the heroes had just been through were foretold in an ancient prophecy found in his heraldric texts. He theorised that this meant that any other prophecies found in them could also come true, and he was particularly worried about a prophecy called the End of Days, which I'll display on the screen now for you all. Now, while this prophecy probably makes a lot of sense to anyone who has played Diablo 3, Deckard Cain needed to know what the prophecy meant to prevent it from happening. He began to travel the world, looking for other heraldric texts which may contain clues to help him in his cause. At one point he met Adria, who told him of Leah. Deckard promised her that when he was next in Chaldean, he would check in on her. When he did check in on her, though, it was clear that Gillian was not up for the task of caretaker. The horrors she had witnessed in Tristram had taken her toll, so to keep Leah safe, he took care of her, and they began travelling together for the next 13 years. Leah grew up in Gillian's care, but Gillian wasn't mentally fit, so Leah often looked scruffy in her youth. She played in the sewers, and often got bullied by other children in Chaldean, and who called her sewer rat. Gillian never spoke much about her parents, and her origins were largely kept a mystery to her. In fact, she probably had quite the scary childhood, as not only did she know where she came from, But there was also a large well of untapped power due to her heritage, such as dreams where she could see the future events so clearly it was as if they were memories. As Leah and Deckard travelled together, he tried to teach her how to control her abilities. His Herodric knowledge helped her understand her powers, however they never managed to truly control it. However, he never gave up on trying to help. Leah loved the travelling, and her new ward, who she took to calling Uncle Deckard, and they became their own little family. She found their travels interesting and exciting, but she never believed Deckard's stories. All the end of the world was looming, much like Deckard's own disbelief in his mother's stories. They were not the only people searching Sanctuary, as Adria was also wandering, trying to fulfill her own goals. Since Leah's birth, she wandered Sanctuary and managed to find 5 essences of the prime evils that had been killed and gathered up. With these trapped, it left only 2 lesser evils to deal with, Azmodan and Belial. At the same time, she tried to find the Herodric artifact, the Black Soul Stone. Her and Cain nearly ran into each other more than once, and Cain sensed she was nearby. However, they never spoke again, almost like she was avoiding him. In the year 1285, the end of day prophecy came true, and a huge meteor hit Tristram. Deckard and Leah were in the monastery where the falling star hit. Leah managed to escape and run back to Tristram. Deckard, however, was caught and fell deeper into the monastery. Unfortunately, Tristram swiftly became an unsafe town yet again. Belial noticed the star and dispatched waves of demons to attack the town. Luckily for everyone, a group of Nephilim warriors came from many different walks of life and helped rescue Cain and the town. However, Deckard wasn't saved for long. Adria's old cult and its now sole leader Magna were working with Belial, and Magda killed the old Herodric scholar and fled to Chaldean. Although Leah and Deckard hadn't been in New Tristram for long, they'd become firm friends with many villagers, and his death was mourned throughout the town. Leah vowed to get revenge by aiding the Nephilim and to finish Cain's writings, and so the party gave chase. Adria the Witch was in the city of Chaldean. She'd finally found how to get the Black Soul Stone and was setting out for the journey. She was captured by Belial's guards in the city sewers, who tortured her for information on the Black Soul Stone. Belial knew of the artifact's existence, but didn't know what it did. Luckily, the Nephilim warriors found and killed the guards by chance while hunting for Magda. With their help, Adria and her daughter were reunited at last. Adria apologised to Leah, telling her that she'd gone on a quest to kill all the primevals to make the world safe once and for all. She told the Nephilim of the Black Soul Stone and how it could trap the primeval's essences and then be destroyed, which would kill them once and for all. As the Nephilim went to get the stone, she stayed behind in Chaldean with Leah and trained her how to use her magic and rebuilt their non-existent relationship. In her spare time, Leah would then pore over Deckard's journals. In there she found pages about her, and Deckard's love was clear. However, Deckard had a deep mistrust for Adria, and he suspected his mother's involvement in the cult led by his murderer. Leah confronted Adria, who admitted that yes, she was in the cult. She claimed it was part of her quest to stop the forces of hell, but she had taken it too far, an explanation that Leah accepted. When the Nephilim brought the Black Soul Stone back, Adria pushed the 5 essences she had collected into it, along with the souls of Belial and Azmodan once they had been defeated. While Leah helped her keep them contained within the stone, a task that became increasingly difficult to prevent. When the last soul was pulled into the stone, Adria had promised to destroy it, killing the 7 greater evils once and for all.
We've done it! Quickly now, Leah! Trap Azmodan's essence within the Soul Stone!
It's done!
I never dared dream. All evil lies trapped within that stone. Once it is destroyed, the eternal conflict will finally end.
However, it was not to be, and Adria betrayed the Nephilim and her own daughter, and pulled the 7 souls into Leah. As Leah was Diablo's child, she transformed into Diablo as a singular prime evil, just as Tethamat had once been. However, he looked different. Whereas previous incarnations of Diablo were bulky and muscular, this one was more feminine. In Leah's final note, before she is killed by the transformation, she writes that she understands why Deckard mistrusted her mother, but that it was all okay, and Adria was there for her, and they could soon begin a new life together. As the heroes chase after the primeval, Adria escapes, travelling to the wilds of Bloodmarsh, but she doesn't remain safe for long, as once Diablo is defeated, the Nephilim hunt her down. In retaliation, Adria transforms herself into a huge blood demon. However, she's still no match for the power of the Nephilim. As these events transpire, the Archangel Tyrael found the collection of Leah's notes among her possessions. He collated her works into his own. Tyrael was riddled with guilt, blaming himself for her death. So when he reformed a new Herodric order, he told the story of Leah in such a positive way, praising her nature and actions, and using her as a point of inspiration, as he did not want her to be vilified in the story's retellings. And with that, all three characters' stories are at an end. There will be a new Herodrum, and Deckard Cain's stories will live on with that. But the old Herodrum that Joe talked about is now over, and everyone's dead. So, enjoy that light note during the pandemic, eh? I'm glad you enjoyed the episode, guys. If you did, please subscribe, and all stay safe.